Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome to Humanity Feels. I'm your host, Yasmin I. This is a space where healing and conscious conversations happen. Join me on this journey as we dive into spirituality, relationships, and all the things that make us human. You'll also hear personal stories and practical advice from some of the best coaches, lightworkers, and spiritual entrepreneurs in the game. Let's heal, break patterns, shift paradigms, and rise together. Hey, my loves, I am super excited about this week's episode because it is a topic that is very close to my heart right now. If you guys have listened to my previous episodes, specifically the one about my journey with the dark night of the soul, you know that I am moving through a really tough time. And I decided to create this episode because we are all moving through a really tough time. And we are all going through a collective dark night of the soul, even if we don't know that or understand that. But for this week, we have special guest, Vanessa Ooms, and she is the founder of Van Ooms Media Co., which is a graphic and web design studio dedicated to working with heart-centered entrepreneurs to create professional branding that speaks to the soul of their business. After experiencing a massive shift and spiritual awakening in 2015, Vanessa has made it her mission to help people through their spiritual awakenings and remember their intuitive nature and live inspired lives. She also has a YouTube channel. It is awesome, you guys. I watch her videos all the time, and she talked a lot about the dark night of the soul and spiritual awakening, and her videos actually inspired me and helped me so much that I wanted to give her the opportunity to come on here and speak about her experience and help us move through this time period as well. So I'm really excited. I hope you guys enjoy it. And please, 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 this is so important. Please share this with someone that you know is going through a tough time, that might be going through a dark night of the soul, or, you know, just share it on Instagram and tag me and spread the word, you guys. This is a topic that I find is really important right now, and this is the best way that we can all hold hands and help each other move through this really tough time period, this really tough process. So, enjoy the episode, guys. Hi, Vanessa. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing really well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited. Just for the audience to know, we tried recording so many times. So I'm really excited today.
Me too. Fourth time's a charm.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. Exactly. So, we have a really good topic coming today. So super excited because we're going to be talking about the dark night of the soul. And you and I both have gone through our own experiences with that, and the collective is going through that right now. So, you know, there's no better timing than right now to talk about this. But before we dive into that, definitely just give us a little backstory of who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are right now.
For sure. So, hi everyone. My name's Vanessa Ooms, and I live in beautiful British Columbia in Canada. I grew up in the mountains. Super blessed to have had that childhood. And so what I do for work is I run my own graphic and web design company. And mainly most of my clientele is in the wellness industry. So I've niched myself to work with coaches and healers and people who want to make a positive impact in the world. So it's really cool.
Oh,
And
I love it.
Yeah. And so I went through a massive spiritual shift and awakening in 2015, and and didn't have a whole lot of resources or people in my life who I could talk to about it. And so once I kind of figured my stuff out as best I could, I felt compelled to get on YouTube and share what I was learning in the hope that I could help someone through their own awakening process.
Yes, I love it. And that's how you helped me, because I found you on YouTube, and like literally in the middle when I was like in the void phase, like very heavy in the void phase, I was like, oh my God, because I'm still reintegrating, you know, so I'm still not completely out. But, you know, I was in a place where I was like, oh my God, there is so much darkness. I can't see anything.
Yeah.
At least now I kind of have glimpses of the light, but not quite there yet, but yes, it definitely has gotten a lot better. But your videos really inspired me, and that's why I reached out to you, because I was like, oh my God, this was so helpful. And it was so good to know that you're not alone when you go through these experiences, and that most of us go through this, but we just don't know how to explain it. We don't know what it is sometimes, and we don't really have the knowledge or the guidance to be able to move through it. So it's really nice that I was able to find that YouTube video and your channel in general. So yeah, for everyone listening, please check out Vanessa's videos. They're awesome, and Vanessa's awesome. So just like shameless plug.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that, Vanessa. So awesome. So yeah, I mean, I'm so intrigued to know more about your spiritual awakening story, of course, and your dark night and how that started, how you felt, and all of that. I feel like when we're going through an experience like that, all we really want to know is hear people's stories, because we know that this is an individual path, and we know that no matter what anyone tells us or does for us, like, we have to get through it ourselves. Like there's nothing that can really fix it or help us. We can get all the advice in the world, but at the end of the day, it is a path that we have to walk on our own. But hearing people's stories, I feel, is so healing, and storytelling is just such a great way to move through whatever it is that you're going through. So yeah, just, tell us more about your spiritual awakening journey.
For sure. So growing up as a kid, like I always kind of knew, I always kind of felt that there was something out there, but
Right.
I didn't grow up with religion.
Right.
Really, I mean, we went to church when I was young, but kind of stopped going when I was in my preteens, and I didn't feel like I had a very strong like spiritual foundation. I just knew when I was in the forest that, I could feel the heartbeats of the trees, and I felt like a connection, and I just
Wow.
something about nature that was so soothing and so real and so honest. And it was like I make the joke that, trees have always made more sense to me than people.
It's true. I agree.
Oh, and yeah, so I experienced some very traumatic things when I was younger, and ended up abusing alcohol and just kind of
Right.
I was very lost for a while. And then, in 2015, I experienced a very shocking end to a relationship that I thought was going to be forever. We had a business together, we had a house together, we had built this whole thing together, and I had built this whole identity around being this kind of business owner and being in this relationship. And
Yeah.
when it all came crashing down around me, I I didn't even know who I was anymore. I had this experience of just complete disbanding and like disillusionment. I just was like, holy crap, I don't have this anymore. I don't have these things. I don't have this relationship.
Yeah.
I don't have this person. Like,
Who am I?
who am I?
Yeah.
Actually, who am I?
Right.
Because none of this exists anymore for me. And oh, go ahead.
Ask yourself. That's such a scary
Oh,
question. Yeah.
it's the scariest.
It is.
It's the scariest question, because I feel like um, in our North American society, at least, we don't ask those questions.
No, we don't.
We don't ask those questions. And so I remember one day I was just like sitting on the kitchen floor, bawling my eyes out, and just being like, where do I go from here? What do I do now? Like, and who am I?
Yeah, that question keeps coming up.
Oh man. And I just felt so raw and so vulnerable
Oh,
and so like exposed, you know?
right. Oh,
It's
yeah.
like all of these masks, all of these
This
constructs,
ego. Yeah.
yeah, all of these ego constructs that I didn't even have this language back then. All these things fell away.
Literally.
Yeah. I didn't know about the chakra system. I didn't
Right.
know about even like the shadow self or like I had just started really delving into these things, and it's probably why this awakening happened.
Totally. Yeah.
But yeah, I was sitting there just like, holy crap, what do I do now? And I felt something crack open, and all of a sudden all of the colors around me got super bright, and I started like I could feel I had a fan going in the next room. I could feel the pulse of the fan like underneath my skin, and all of a sudden my senses started awakening.
Oh,
and,
man.
and I felt like really intense physical sensations, and I actually started feeling this burning at the base of my spine.
Oh, yeah.
And was like, what is this? And I actually felt all of this energy just shoot up my
Oh,
spine into my head. And all of a sudden, like I could see the walls start to move and breathe. And I just felt so connected to everything. And, and all of a sudden I felt like it was going to be okay.
wow. So you felt a sense of calm.
I did for a
Wow.
while.
Yes, the beginning is always like blissful and like, yay, I'm floating. But then you
Totally.
kind of fall and you're like, oh shit, I have to go through the through the muck.
Yeah, then you get the backlash. So that
Yeah.
seems to me the pattern is we go through this blissful state
Yeah.
of like, whoa, I'm so open and connected to everything. And then there's the crash.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. There is a pattern to that because I myself have felt that. With this awakening that I'm going through, I felt a sense of bliss. I've had moments of like complete and total oneness and connection with everything and everyone around me, and I felt like I was like literally in heaven one time, and I was just like, whoa, this feels amazing, this is blissful, like can this last forever? And a part of me knew that no, it won't. But I had that hope. I held on to that. And I felt this sense of calm, this sense of peace. But then comes the dark night. Then comes like, okay, now we have to move through the shadows. We have to move through the, repressed emotions, the limiting beliefs, like everything that you thought that you related to. We have to reconstruct, so that's the hardest part of this awakening.
Yeah.
That
And
is the scariest part.
oh, it's so scary because yeah, we experience this bliss and this openness, but then our ego and our psyche is like, well, what the hell is this?
Yeah. Yeah, you feel
Like
like you're
it's
going nuts. Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah.
even though it feels so beautiful and blissful, it's unfamiliar.
It is. Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
that's why our minds freak out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Exactly. Because it's not used to that. It's sitting there trying to make a story out of what's going on, and the ego's like, okay, let's try to create something out of this because I don't understand it. Like I need help. I feel like I'm going crazy, or I'm being destroyed right now, literally. I feel like that's what the ego says in a moment like that, and that's, at least that's what my ego's been saying.
Yeah. And it's and but you know what? That's our ego's job though. Like
Yeah.
the ego
Yeah,
really gets a bad rap.
I know, right? Poor thing.
Yeah, but
It's
it's
being slapped around, it's
exactly. But it's so essential. Like
yeah.
its main function is to keep us alive.
Right.
And so it's constantly like monitoring and making meaning out of every experience and trying to like have some kind of baseline
Right.
that
Right.
it can compare your present experience to. So when we experience this amazing blissfulness, it's just like, well, this like fries it. It's like does not compute.
Yeah. Yeah.
like I have nothing to relate this to. I have nothing to
Yeah.
base this experience on. So this feels unsafe.
Yes, exactly. No matter how great it feels, it's still unsafe because it's unfamiliar. It's
Mhm.
out of our comfort zone. So immediately that's going to feel like, whoa, whoa, like alarm. This is not okay. This is not something we're used to. We can't go in that direction because we don't know what's out there.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Yeah, you're right. The ego's there to keep us safe and to, help us make sense of what's going on. And that is really helpful, of course. In moments like this, that's super helpful. But I think the goal with a dark night is to really question those beliefs and what your
Mhm.
ego is telling you. I don't think it's to shut it up or to completely ignore it, because at the end of the day, the ego never actually dies. We call it an ego death, but it doesn't die. It just transforms. And
Exactly.
in that in that moment of the dark night, that's what it's doing. It's transforming. So it feels like a death. It feels like it's like completely non-existent. It feels confusing, and it feels um scary and all these things, but it's just in a stage of transformation, and it's just trying to create a new foundation, essentially.
Exactly. But that process can feel, yeah, super messy and super scary. And
Mm-hmm.
like when I was going through this, I honestly felt like I was losing my mind.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I would too. I mean, like, feeling energy like moving through your body and seeing all these like bright colors. Like, yeah, I would feel the same.
Well, yeah, and then the backlash, it's like in the dark night, you're questioning everything, like
Yeah.
questioning things that you didn't even that you were doing on autopilot don't even make
Yes.
sense anymore. And you start looking at, like, I actually had an experience where, like, we know the ego versus the observer, right?
Right.
I had become the observer, and I was
Mm-hmm.
watching myself go through my life on autopilot and be like, whoa, you don't really mean what you just said there, and
Yeah.
you're just saying that to
Mm-hmm.
be like get accepted, and you're doing, like, why are you doing that, and why are you eating that, and why are you
Yes.
saying to
Yes.
yourself? And
Yes. 100%. That's what I'm going through now. Like, I've been feeling that way for a few months now, of like my ego, like I'm observing what I do and how I act and how I show up. 100%. That, I think that's a big part of the process too. Because we start to be more conscious and more self-aware of why we do the things we do,
yeah,
which is crazy to me, because it's like before we never questioned certain things. And that's why this feels like such an existential crisis. It becomes like this existential anxiety or this existential depression, because there are things that we never questioned, that we never even stopped to think about, and now everything's kind of like flooding in at the same time. So you're just kind of like, wait, what? Why am I thinking about these existential questions that I never really thought about? Or if I did think about them, it was more from an intellectual place,
hmm,
which is also another part of I feel the Dark Knight is, intellectual awareness and emotional awareness are two different things. And that's something that I'm learning right now with the
totally.
process I'm going through. It's like, I knew about all of these spiritual concepts before. And because I've been learning about them, because I love to learn and I love reading and I love watching YouTube videos and all that stuff. But I didn't actually understand it until now that I'm
Yeah.
going through it. You'll never actually get it until you go through it. Like, you could read about the Dark Knight all you want, and you could read about a spiritual awakening all you want. You'll be like, oh yeah, that sounds pretty hard. That sounds pretty terrible, pretty challenging, but it can't be that bad. But then when you're actually in it, you're like, oh wow, this is what they're talking about.
Yeah, and holy crap, you go so deep so quickly and with
Yes.
everything all at once, and it's just like, ah.
Yes, exactly. It's everything at once. That's the issue. It's like everything just comes at you so fast, and like it's like accelerated. It feels like an accelerated boot camp, accelerated
100%.
spiritual boot camp. That's what it feels.
Oh, I love that.
I joke around about that. I tell my boyfriend that all the time. I'm like, I feel like I'm in this accelerated like spiritual boot camp now, because like, I just got slapped out of nowhere with this. And it's like, why? I already had an awakening years ago. Why did I have to go through another one? And then I'm like, that's my ego talking.
Oh, totally. Because that's the funny part too, is like the ego just wants it to
Be
be a
done.
one and done thing.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool.
Absolutely.
I've done my work. I went through this. I've arrived. I'm done my
I'm
work.
enlightened. Exactly. Exactly. And it really tells you that. And like, it's like I felt that way when I was going through this wake when I started with this dark night. I felt a lot of anger. Like probably like a month into it, I was angry. I was like resistant. I was angry. And I was like, why do I feel so much anger? And I did shadow work around that. And I realized, oh, wow, my ego is pissed off because I felt entitled. I felt like I already was doing the work. I was already conscious. I was already awake. I already went through an awakening when I was 21. Why do I have to go through another one now? So I was like, oh my God, I'm so like, part of me is so entitled. Like, and I realized that's one of my shadows. And
Mhm.
so I was like, but there's validation to that. Like, I wasn't blaming myself for how I felt. I was just kind of like curious as to why is there so much anger arising from this, and where is it coming from, and how do I move through it? That's all I cared, and that's all I cared to do at that moment. And basically, I did the shadow work, and I really looked at myself, and I was like, I'm just angry because I thought I was done. And I'm not, because life is a cycle of transformation. Like, and again, we all know that intellectually. We all understand that life has its challenges, has its obstacles. It's beautiful, but it also comes with its challenges. And like, we do have to go through certain things, and we do go through cycles of transformation, but we don't understand that emotionally until we go through, a few of those trials. And then, and as we get older, of course, we start to realize like, oh yeah, this is what it's like. But when you're young, I guess when you're in your 20s, it's pretty hard until you reach a point when you're like, oh, I get it now. I actually get it, and not on an intellectual level, on an emotional level.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, and would you say before your awakening, you actually explore your emotions, or was it just kind of?
No, I wouldn't. I actually thought about that, and I would distract myself a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And one of the ways I used to distract myself was with food, for sure. And social media. I would notice in the past, I would notice that I would get uncomfortable, or I would feel anxious, or I would feel waves of like sadness or whatever it was. And I would take my phone and start scrolling. And then I would feel better. So it was kind of like repressing, numbing the emotions that were trying to come up. And it became so autopilot that I didn't even realize that I was doing that until now, that I'm like reflecting on how did I manage my emotions in the past, and why do they feel so heavy now? And I'm realizing like, oh, because I repressed them for so many years.
Yeah.
And I really did stop doing the inner work. I did a lot of it when I had my first awakening at 21, but then it came to a point where I got really comfy. And I got to a point where I really thought like, oh, I'm good. I'm woke. Like, I don't need to do anything else. So my ego, the spiritual ego came out of, it's all good. I'm okay. Like, I'll be good. I don't, nothing's going to happen. Like, I can handle things. Um, and I had this like, it was like a false sense of confidence for sure, but
Mhm.
it almost felt like, yeah, like I didn't need to do anything anymore. Like, I was okay because I had already gone through that awakening. And so whenever I felt emotions, it almost felt like I was like entitled enough to scroll and distract myself, that I didn't need to look at it. And I realize that now. I'm like, oh my goodness, no wonder everything's kind of piling up right now. And I'm like, okay, I'm
Oh.
paying the consequences. I get it, universe.
Oh,
I'll do the work, I promise.
yeah. I think we all go through that, because I went through that too, where I was like, holy crap, that was really intense. But now, okay, cool. Now I'm done.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I actually, I thought, I'm not proud of this, but I actually thought that I was woke. I was,
Hmm.
better than other people,
For
and I was
sure.
like, okay, maybe I can start teaching now, and like,
Yes.
because I'm done. But then
Yes.
I got slapped again.
The universe humbles us.
All the time, and it's just like, yeah, it's like a constant process of keeping us humble
Yeah.
and just, there will always be work to do.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. There's always stuff to look at. There's always, things to move through, and you're so right. It's really crazy, and it's the spiritual ego is so sneaky. It's the sneakiest one because it really comes up and you feel like it's not ego, but it sometimes it is because you start to feel like, yeah, I'm better than someone because I'm more spiritual.
Yeah.
And you might not consciously say that or feel that way, but on a subconscious level, like, it's there. That thought is there, so you do have to remind yourself constantly, like, just because I've had this experience or just because I'm spiritual, it doesn't mean that I'm better than others. It just means that my path is different,
Yeah.
and that doesn't make anyone's path less than or more than. It just means that that's just how it is, and these are the cards that you were dealt in this lifetime, and other people are dealt different cards. So I think that acceptance and that reminder that we give ourselves really helps keep us in check when our ego starts to get a little bit, like, I'm better than you. So it's a very humbling experience, that's for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went through this. It's so funny. I'm just sorry. You've got me reflecting now on kind of like the phases that I went through. And I went through a little bit where I was like, I wanted to tell everyone about it. And it's like,
Yeah.
holy crap, I figured it all out. And like, I want you guys to
Yeah.
come with me. And then it's like, oh, I was not met with the acceptance that I wanted. And so that's when my spiritual ego started really piping up. And it's like, oh, well, they're not like, they're not meant to accept it, or they're not there yet, or whatever.
Right.
And it's like, I wanted all of these people to accept my experience, but
Right.
I needed to accept it myself.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Oh my God, I love that. That's so true. It was a projection of some sort. You were waiting for that, but you were still needing to accept it yourself.
Totally. And I think that's a lot of what my awakening has been actually accepting all of these different layers of myself.
Right.
You know,
Totally.
I went through life just seeking validation for so many different things, and now it's like, oh, I have to give that to myself. And so I'm
Right.
like uncovering all of these different layers of parts of me that have felt rejected
Right.
in life, and just
Yeah.
accepting all of them. And it's not always easy.
No, no, it's really challenging. It is really challenging. It certainly is really challenging, and like, it's very overwhelming because there's so much going on,
Yeah,
on an individual level, that you're like, okay, I don't even know where to start. There's so many limiting beliefs and there's so much stuff that I have to look at. So it could feel really overwhelming, and it could feel really heavy at times, when you're really going through this.
totally.
Right. And like, as a collective, that's another scale of dark night that we're going through, because we know that we are all awakening, and we are all, moving into a new way of being, into a new era, um, of more consciousness, of more, connectedness. And that's amazing. I'm so happy about that. I'm so excited that we're all moving in that direction. But right now it's hard, and even though we have that vision, even though we keep that vision of like, life is going to be beautiful, it's going to be great, we're going to have new systems, we're going to have new things in place, we're going to have more fairness in the world, like, all of that is coming. But in the meantime, in the present moment, we do have to deal with what we've been given and what has happened, throughout all of 2020, and what is going to continue to unfold as time goes on. But yeah, how do you think that we as a collective can, like, help each other move through this dark night that we're all basically experiencing?
Mm,
That's something I was, like, reflecting on.
for
Much.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, on an individual level, like I actually get quite a few people messaging me asking like, how do I do this? How do I
Yeah.
face my shadow? Like, I know that I need to do this work, but it feels so overwhelming.
Right.
And so I feel like I really need to say to those people that it's you don't have to do it all at once. Like, you don't have to face everything all at once, because it's just it is a lot, and it's
Right.
really overwhelming. So really just staying in the present moment is so key, and just working with what you're working with in that moment,
Right.
like
Right.
day by day, kind
Yeah.
of just chunking away at the work. Because it's just, if you try to do it all at once,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just, it's way too much. So if you
Yeah.
just staying in the present moment and working with what's coming up in that moment for you, that's like, what's the analogy about how do you eat an elephant or whatever? It's like one bite at a time.
Yes. 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 I know what you're talking about.
Like one bite at a time, one piece of shadow work at a time,
Yeah.
it's so
Baby
tempting to just
steps.
be like, want to do it all right now.
Yeah, because the ego wants to move through it quickly. That's why.
Exactly. But this is like, it's a marathon,
It
not
is.
a sprint.
Yes, I love that. I love that. That's such a good reminder because it is. And I think I love what you said about being in the present moment because I'm realizing that myself right now as I'm going through my experience of there's moments where I sit there and I start to think about the future and I
Mm,
start thinking like, "Oh my god, am I ever going to be okay? Am I always going to feel this way? Am I always going to feel like this anxiety, this depression? Like I feel like these ebbs and flows are so intense and so heavy. I've never felt this way before. Like is this going to be my reality?" And I get lost in that sometimes because I start thinking about the future and I start like looking way too ahead. And I'm like, wait a second, I need to be in this moment because I like the future doesn't even exist. First of all, we're creating it anyway. There's no way of me knowing what's going to happen in a week or in 2 months or in 5 years. It's just really about, like you said, taking the baby steps and doing it one step at a time, doing the shadow work, one piece of shadow work at a time, and and
exactly.
and like observing yourself in the present moment and just moving through with that and not really like having this outcome or this expectation of like I have to be okay in a week or I have to be okay next month.
Yeah.
So really reminding ourselves of that is really important during a time period that feels so heavy because if you're constantly in the future and you're constantly thinking about that, you're not it's going to overwhelm you and you're going to keep making circles. You're going to feel crazy. So
Oh
at
yeah.
least that's what I feel when I'm like way too in the future and I'm not even focused in this moment with what I'm going through. So
Well, and
present
that's
moment is
that's just
key.
another way to numb too.
Yeah.
Yeah, then like
Yeah.
that, we've talked about numbing before, and it's not always just substances and media.
Right.
Sometimes it's worrying, it's anxiety, it's
Yeah. Yeah,
going
looking
too far
ahead.
into the future or getting lost in the past.
Definitely, definitely. And thinking, when am I going to get through this? Like
Yeah.
that question right there. It's like, because we don't know the answer to that. No one does. And no one can tell you when you're going to get through your dark night. It's like you just got to get through it. That's it. And
Yeah.
you just got to be with it. And that's how you
And
get through it.
yeah, well, and getting comfortable with
Right.
being uncomfortable and getting
Oh,
comfortable in the unknown, because our egos always want to know. Our
yeah.
egos want to know what the plan is, what the
Right.
steps are, when it's going to be
Yes. When am I
done.
getting out of this? Exactly. Exactly. And
Yeah.
it always wants to do the research. I find that my ego loves the validation of what I'm
Mm.
going through. So it's just like I constantly numb myself with like, videos and articles and all that stuff about what I'm going through, even though I already know what I'm going through. But how funny is it that the ego just wants a sense of security of like, I'm not crazy, I'm not crazy, I'm not mentally ill, all is well. It's like I think that's where the worry is. And so I seek that validation. I seek like a sense of comfort. And you're right, that is numbing yourself too. Because like how is that really helping your evolution in the moment? It's not. It's just giving you this validation that you already know deep down what you're going through.
For sure. But see, and there's always like a fine line here, because sometimes when we're in the work and we are feeling that ungroundedness, it does help to watch a video and get that confirmation. But
Reminder. Right.
yeah, and that reminder, it's just, and that's not a bad thing. But when it gets to be consuming hours and hours of
Yeah.
your day.
And it's obsessive, then yeah, that's
Yeah,
not good. Yeah, and I
exactly.
find myself in that loophole, and I'm like, oh wait, nope, I'm gonna set a boundary. I'm gonna stop right there. You know, like I'll give myself the validation I need, and then I'll step out of that, and you know that's it. I'll let things be, and I got to come back to this moment, to where I'm at right now, and I go ground or do a workout, or you know do something that will make me feel a little bit more safe in this moment in my body. So
Yeah.
that's always like the goal of bringing it back to your body, bringing it back to being in there, even though it might feel a bit uncomfortable. Like you said, like get comfortable with the uncomfortable, which is hard. It's really difficult, but you know, with time and practice, eventually that's how you reintegrate.
For sure.
That's what it is. I think that like there's no special answer to how do you get out of the dark night, or the spiritual awakening experience. Like how do you move through the hardest part? It's really sitting with it.
Sitting with it and really being gentle with yourself. And I know that that's an overused cliche right now, but it's like
It's true.
learning ways to self-soothe and just to actually listen to yourself, because we've gone through a period of time where we've really as a collective cultivated like the masculine energy of like doing, producing,
Right.
making, like constantly being
Yeah.
on the move, where it's like learning how to actually slow down and learning how to actually listen to yourself and listen to others. and
Right.
and it's really, so collectively, if we can just, yeah, if we can slow down and really learn to listen to each other and listen to the stories and acknowledge what's coming up for people. And because it can be really easy with ourselves and others to just be quick to judge.
Right. 100%.
You know, this emotion, I'm feeling really sad right now and I don't understand it, and now I feel weak and I don't like this and blah 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 blah,
Yeah.
and now I want to get out of it as quickly as possible.
Oh, wow, you're speaking to you're speaking to me, Vanessa. I feel attacked. That's hilarious. That's literally my thought process. Oh my
Well,
god, it's true though. We do judge ourselves.
oh, so
We
harshly. And
do.
and
Yeah.
I still do that. You know,
Yeah.
it's been 6 years and I still find myself doing that. And it's still a practice to be like, okay, let's chillax and actually, like, I actually have learned to kind of treat myself like a child. And I know that might sound weird, but like actually treating yourself as if you had like a 6-year-old in front of you
Right.
telling you how they're feeling,
Right.
and actually like giving yourself that compassion. And then once you do that, you can extend it to other people, but just starting it within
Yeah.
and being like,
Yeah.
okay, little Vanessa, like, what do you
Right.
need to tell me right now?
Right. Right. Or what do you need in this moment? You know, it's like it's
Yeah,
tending to your inner child.
exactly.
Yeah, and that's inner child work, you know, and that's also a really big part of moving through this experience is, you know, checking in, because I feel like even though we're adults, our inner child still lives on, and
Hmm.
we're still kids at heart, you know? So the fact, and we didn't have the tools that we have now to soothe our inner child when we were kids. You know, we might have struggled doing that because we had trauma, or we were raised in households that didn't really see us or understand us, and that's okay. But now we have the tools to be able to sit with it and move through it.
For sure. And I don't know about like speaking to your experience, but with me personally, like when I went through this initial awakening, all of a sudden I had all of these repressed memories come up,
Yes, yeah, me too.
you know, and like I had spent so many years numbing that all of a
Yeah,
sudden, now that I'm awake and conscious of this, that all of these repressed memories and emotions are like, oh my God, I've got the spotlight. Look at me, look at me, look at me.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And it wasn't, for me, it was also not just like repressed memories from childhood. It was repressed memories from like 5 years ago. You know,
Yeah.
from 21, from my past relationship. I was like, whoa, what's coming up here? Why is stuff coming up here? I thought that was done with. I thought I healed that already, you know, but it wasn't. There was still stuff that was coming up from like just a few years ago, and yeah, a lot of stuff from childhood too, but definitely it's a lot of repressed memories come up to the surface and they want to be seen.
Yeah. They want to be seen and acknowledged.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the goal with it, is to see whatever is coming up and to be present with it and to tend to whatever that inner child needs in the moment.
Yeah. And that can be uncomfortable AF.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like this is not easy work. It's painful. It's painful stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes when you actually sit down and consciously work through this stuff, it hurts just as much or even more sometimes than when the original wound happened.
Right. Oh
And
yeah, for sure.
not many people talk about that. Like it can actually be really painful. And I feel like that's why a lot of people, when they get to the dark night of the soul, sometimes they'll just crack because
Yeah.
it's so much all at once. It's so painful. We don't have the tools to deal with it. And
Right.
it's just like you just, yeah, if you don't have the tools and resources, you can just go off the deep end. And that's
Yeah.
why, like,
Right.
and I was dangerously close to doing that. That's
Yeah.
why I have to bring this up. It was
No,
like,
this is actually really important because this is something that comes up, up for a lot of people.
yeah,
And I love that you brought that up, Vanessa. Thank you, because I was gonna bring it up, and I was just like, this is amazing. Like I love that you brought it up because yes, that's definitely something that I notice in a lot of people that comes up. Suicidal ideation or,
yeah,
actually harming yourself and all of that. Like it's even come up for me in the sense where not necessarily that I had a plan, but that I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is so hard. I don't even want to be here anymore, but
yeah,
that's as far as I got with my thought. But it's a sense of overwhelming. The depression is so overwhelming that it gets to a point where you're just like, I just can't keep going. I can't see a life out of this. It's
yeah.
almost like you don't even want to see a life out of this anymore. It's like, it's weird. It's really, and I was like, I've never experienced this before. I've never had these intense thoughts before or feelings before.
Mhm.
So it does give you a sense of empathy and a sense of like compassion for people who experience this on a daily basis or people who have gone through these moments in their life. Um, which is, it's great to have that empathy, but it is really scary to go through that. And this is something that it's a symptom that I notice a lot of people have when they're going through a dark night. It's thoughts of suicide.
It totally.
Yeah.
Oh, and because like you mentioned an ego death before,
Yeah.
so when we have this, yeah, this whole construct of life that we thought was solid fall away, it does feel like a death.
It does. Yeah.
And our ego doesn't know what to do with it. So it's like, well, maybe I am dying.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just supposed to die right now.
Right.
And so that can bring up a lot of the suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
And also because it's so dark, it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like,
Right.
I
I don't
went
even
through this
care.
for a while. Like, I don't even want to exist anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. No matter what, I don't even care. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly. And it's going to ebb and flow. It's going to, like, for me, it started in February. Like, that's when I started having those feelings and thoughts. And it was really intense back then in February. And now it's a lot better. I've gotten so much better, but it
Mhm.
still comes up. The last couple of days it's come up. And I'm like, oh, this again. But like, because I was doing fine. I was so much better and excited and inspired. And then yesterday and before yesterday, I felt it, and I'm going to be completely real. It's like, it was difficult to have those thoughts and those emotions because it feels so overbearing. It feels so real because you're right. It does feel like you're dying. So it's
Yeah,
almost like the ego prefers that, right? It tells us like, well, there's no point because my whole structure and everything that I once knew is gone. So it's better to not live than to go into the unknown.
exactly.
That's
It's
how the
so
ego
black and
says.
white.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Totally. Super black and white. And it just feels like really intense. Like that's like the word for it. It just feels so intense. And the ego is tricky. It tricks us into thinking that that's it. This is the reality. And we're never going to get out of this. And you're going to be in this dark hole forever. So you might as well not be here.
Yeah. And that's why I found it so important to, I'm glad we're having this conversation too, because people people need to hear this. Like,
Yeah, they do. They
and
do.
just I just want to encourage people like your listeners too that
Totally.
it does get better.
Yeah.
Like if you're in the thick of it right now, you will get out of it. Like it
Right.
just, I know it can seem so all consuming, but
Yeah. And the thoughts
this
do
will
go
pass.
away. Yeah. And the feeling does go away for sure.
It really does.
Yeah.
And if we have, and that's where like it's good to have this intellectual knowledge of
Right.
what's happening. Like you can see that it's just your mind feeling ungrounded, feeling
Right.
like it doesn't have any construct. So it's just, that's all this is.
Yeah. Yep.
And then you can kind of disconnect. Not, I don't want to say disconnect, but you can kind of just see it for what it is and know that you're
Observe.
not crazy.
Right.
Just be in it. And
Right.
it's funny, the once we accept what's actually happening, it passes a lot faster. But if we're
Yeah.
in it, just being like, oh, I feel like I need to just not be here anymore. I don't want
Right.
this.
Right.
It's
It's
just,
hard. Yeah.
yeah.
That's when it gets difficult. Like the acceptance of that gets really hard.
Well, and how, yeah, and how do you accept it
Yes.
when
Yes.
you're going through it? How do
Oh,
you accept it?
right.
How do you
Totally.
accept how uncomfortable it is?
Oh, no, literally. Like I'm thinking about that right now. I'm like, oh my God. It's true. This is like Vanessa's like really spitting so many facts right now. Like I love it. I love it. It's true though. Like how do you accept it when you're in the thick of it? Because this is it's hard. It's really hard stuff. It's
Yeah.
really hard stuff.
So I think one thing that you can kind of think about if you're in the middle of it is just that this is, you're going through almost like a purifying fire.
Yeah.
When you're in it that deep, there is some insane amounts of healing going on.
Yeah.
Like you are healing really, really deep layers of not just your stuff, but also things that have
Ancestral.
been passed down through your ancestral lineage.
100%. Yeah. Oh, I just got chills by you saying that because I
Yeah.
feel that on a deep level. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, think about even like 50, 100, 200 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of time for people to be exploring like this.
Yeah.
You know, we
Absolutely.
we have a pretty cushy existence, let's be real.
We do. Yeah,
Like
we do.
we have easy access to food. We
Yeah.
have and water. We're not carrying water. We're not having to farm ourselves and
Right.
like do our own things. Like
Yeah.
we have a lot of extra time
We have
in this
options too.
generation. We have
Yeah.
options. We
Yeah.
have internet. We have
Uh-huh.
so access to so much information.
Yeah.
And so like we're alive at this time for a reason.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
that's why so many people are waking up so
Yeah.
quickly at this time too.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. I'm like, Vanessa, I'm getting chills as you're speaking because it's true. There's just, it's such a wild time period to be alive. It's a beautiful time period to be here. And, it's, yes, it is challenging and it comes with its obstacles, but like the fact that we are moving through this and that we're in the midst of it right now, like we are walking through the fire as a collective.
Yeah.
And we are all warriors. Every single one of us are like, we're all warriors for being here and for choosing to be here at this time.
100%.
And yeah, it's oh my God, I'm like getting emotional. I'm about to cry because it really is that, it's really that special. And the fact that we can all support each other because we all understand each other at this point of like, we're all going through a collective trauma. We're all experiencing so much at the same time. And we can hold each other's hands through it. We can remind each other to keep going. We can be each other's cheerleaders,
Yeah, exactly. And we can be each other's cheerleaders. And that's why, like, you mentioned before that, the Dark Knight was really opening up this compassion and empathy for people who have gone through like depression and had
Yeah.
suicidal thoughts. And that's the whole point.
Yep. That
Is
is the whole
to
point.
awaken this compassion and empathy in all of us
Yeah.
so that we can have more grace for each other.
Yeah.
because we've gone through a time period where it's very much been black and white,
Right.
this and that, wrong and right,
Right.
thinking that I have all the answers and you don't, so that makes me better.
Yeah.
Like that whole construct doesn't is not coming with us where we're
No.
going.
No, it's not. It's over. It is. It's over.
It's done. So now we're purging all of that programming from our systems.
Yep. Yep, exactly. And that's the ego death. It's that purge of what once was and the structures and the ways of doing things that are no longer serving us. That it feels, it literally, like the vision that I get is trying to put on a pair of shoes that no longer, like fits you. That you've outgrown, and you're trying and it's giving you blisters, or it's hurting to put on the shoe. And it's like, okay, it's time to wear a new pair, and you get the new pair of shoes, and you got to break them in, and they're uncomfortable too, and
Yeah,
it's like, okay, I'm gonna break them in at some point, but right now they're painful to wear, and it's painful to, like, I still get a few blisters here and there, but like eventually you break the shoes in and you're like, oh, I love these shoes, they became one of my favorite shoes to wear. So that's the vision that I get with, like, the collective and where we're moving, and how we are readjusting and, like, becoming more accustomed to doing things in a new way. It's
yeah.
powerful. Yeah.
That is the perfect analogy for the dark night of the soul. It's
Yeah.
like between a rock and a hard place for a while. It's like, oh, it's uncomfortable if I do things the old way, but oh, it's really uncomfortable if I do things the
Yes.
new way. And it's like, ah,
Exactly.
ah.
Exactly, Vanessa. Exactly. And that's that limbo phase too that we go through. That's the void. That's
Yeah,
the void of, like, I don't know. I'm not who I was, a year ago, but I am not who I want to be yet. So what am I right now? It's like that exploration of who you are and who you're meant to step into.
yeah. So, oh, and I just feel like I need to share this too. So when we're
Yes.
in the void and the dark night of the soul, excuse me, it can be so easy to go down a dark thought
Yeah.
wave about it and just be like, oh, I don't know who I am and blah blah
There's
blah.
no point. Yeah.
There's no point. But also, we can flip that around and be like, whoa, I'm going through a major transformation. And like, seriously, all of the possibilities are opening up for me. I could go in any direction that I want, I could become anything that I want. This is really exciting.
Yes, I love that. I love that so much. Oh my God, I'm gonna start using that too.
Yeah,
That is such a good, like, switch. That is such a good perspective, because you're right. It's so easy to look at that and be like, oh, there's no point. Like, nothing fulfills me anymore. I hate this and this and that. And you can fall down that hole, or you can, like you said, you can be in a place where you're like, wait, this is a perfect place to explore and
yeah.
to do different things, and to be, someone that I wasn't at before. And now I can, like, explore different options.
Exactly. And that's okay. And this is the thing where, like, your higher self is not some, like, up there in the clouds unattainable thing. This is a choice. It's a
Yeah.
choice all the time. So you can choose to, like, have a little ego pity party. And don't get me wrong, I'm not preaching here. Like, my ego loves a pity party.
Same. Same.
But it's like,
Definitely.
in the moment, you get to choose. We
Yeah.
always have a choice. Like, you
Yeah.
can go down that road for as long as you want, but at some point you can also choose to take the high road for yourself and give yourself a new perspective on what's happening, and really, like, raise the vibration of your experience and
Right.
you can look at the light or you can look at the dark. You can open the blinds or you can shut them down on yourself. Like, it's
Right.
all, but you're doing it.
Exactly.
Doing it
Yeah. And
with
it's,
your free will.
yes, 100%. We always have that choice. The option is always there. And we
Yeah.
could take it
And
if we choose to, and if we're ready to do so. So
yeah,
I love that you said that, because, yeah, it's like we are always in power. And I think that that's something we need to remember. When things feel really dark and really heavy, we feel powerless in the face of life's challenges. And this doesn't just apply to the dark night, just anything, any challenge that comes our way. And we
mhm,
feel like we can't make it through, or we can't do this. But in reality, we can. We are strong. We are co-creators. We have the ability to move through things and to choose differently for ourselves.
Totally. And that's a big pill to swallow
It is,
because
yeah.
for me, before my awakening, I was just at the mercy of life.
Yeah.
I was at the mercy of what was happening to me, what people were doing to me. I just thought that life was happening to me.
Victim mentality, yeah.
Victim mentality, big time. And
Right.
then all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, I actually am a lot more powerful than I thought I was. But that also made me realize that holy crap, I've got to take some responsibility for the life that I've created up to this point.
Right. Right.
And
Exactly.
that was hard for me. That was like I didn't want to admit that I had like screwed up my finances and like
Yeah.
invited drama into my life and
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, and how do I get out of this because it's so familiar?
Yeah. Totally. You're right. And taking responsibility is challenging. It's not an easy thing to do, but I think that starting with that awareness towards taking that responsibility and accepting our part that we play, the role that we play in our own stuff, in our own healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God, so much good stuff. Like so much good material right now, Vanessa. Like I'm
Yeah.
so happy right now. We touched on so many important things. And I think, one of the things I also wanted to add was that in terms of like stepping into our power, I think that's something that, we can all really use. And also, I'm speaking from personal experience. This is something that I've always struggled with, is knowing that I am powerful, but not being able to fully step into that. And I think that, we've very much been heavily programmed to look outside of ourselves and to seek external validation constantly, and to think that we don't have the answers and that other people do, when in fact we have all the answers and we have everything we need. And it's great to have guidance, of course, like we all need guidance, we all need help every now and again, but the answers really lie within us. And
Yeah,
once we understand that, and once we actually step into that, things start to make sense. They start to become a little bit easier, and like you start to connect things, and it feels a little bit lighter, and you feel better. You feel more in control of your own circumstances.
exactly. Because you're tuning into your own intuition and
Yeah.
your own internal guidance system.
Right.
Because yeah, it's we are conditioned to look outside of ourselves for guidance and for, the next guru or whatever,
Right.
but you're looking to another fallible human to tell
Yeah.
you what's right for you when you know that.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. And also we place people on pedestals, and it's like they're human too. They're going through their own stuff, and they're not, they're not like this mighty person that knows more than you or has more than you. They might have more wisdom based off of like their experiences and all that, but at the end of the day, you have the answers to your own healing.
Yeah,
No one else can really tell you what to do or how to do it. They can guide you, like that's what mentors are for, that's what coaches are for, but they can't do it for you. They can't get through the shadows for you. Like that's all individual work that we came here to do.
exactly. And like we could give a person a protocol,
Yeah.
like here's something that worked for me, but yeah, eventually you're going to have to figure out what works for you, and you will find out through this process what does work for you, what resonates, what
Right.
makes sense, what process works to get you out of a funk,
Yeah.
and what you ultimately need.
Yeah, your intuition will guide you. During this time, I find that my intuition guides me
Yes.
like heavily. It's like, wow, I'm doing things and I feel called to do things that I would have never done before. But now
Mhm.
that I'm going through a dark night, it's almost like this, like, it's this inner calling that's like telling me, oh, you should do this, or read this book, or go out and take a walk, and like I don't really have a schedule anymore. Ever since my dark night, I used to have like this rigid schedule of like I have to wake up at this time and do this, and I would have my whole week planned out, right? And now I'm like I don't plan anymore. I kind of just plan based off of like how I'm feeling. And
Mhm.
yeah, big things I plan, like my episodes and all that stuff for the podcast, and like meetings and stuff like that. Like of course that's planned, but like little things, I used to plan little things, and I'm like, there's no point. I have to just go with the flow. Like I'm not going to plan to meditate every single day, because what if I don't feel like doing that tomorrow? What if I feel like, just like doing yoga instead, or just going out for a walk, or, just listening to your body, listening to your internal guidance system, because that's what
Exactly.
it's there to do. It's there to guide you. It's there to tell you what you need in that moment. You might not need a certain thing that your ego thinks you need, but you got to just listen to that, and you got to go with it. And it will
It's
never
so
lead you in the wrong direction.
Well, that's the thing. And I feel like we're really getting to be more connected with the flow and the rhythm of the universe and the
Yeah.
planets. Because, back in the day, humans were really in tune with the cycles of the moon and the tides and the sun and everything. We were just we were flowing more. We were
Right.
like just flowing with the natural rhythms of the world. And then somehow we got into this really rigid structure of, needing to plan and schedule everything. And we're staying up way later because we've got electric lights now. And
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
so we're coming back into a balance now. We can have that structure, but we can also have that intuitive flow to our lives. And I think that's the balance that
Masculine
ultimately.
and the feminine. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's where we're coming to, is in a balance between those two.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Because I think, the masculine is very important too. And the doing and the achieving and the, executing your goals and all of that. Like, of course, that's really important. But, the feminine, the resting, the intuition, and the going with the flow, that's a huge part of receiving and manifesting as well, and creating. So you're right. I think that we are heading in that direction. And in order to do that, we need to let go of the things that don't serve us anymore, so we can move towards that.
100%. Hence
Yeah.
the Dark Knight.
Yeah, exactly. Which we will all get through. Again, there's no specific time period of when that's going to end, but it's just a matter of knowing that this too shall pass.
Yeah.
Just like everything else in life, everything passes, and things do have cycles, and just like the seasons, things pass, and yeah, it sucks in the moment, but it will pass, and you will move through it, and then one day you'll look back and be like, wow, that was a crazy experience, and it helped me be where I'm at now. And that's literally what everyone says. No one ever says, oh, screw that experience, I hated it, and I'm in a worse place now. Most of the time people say, I feel so grateful for that experience. If
Yeah.
you choose to take the path, again, you always have the choice, but to create more for yourself and get out of that place, and be in a healthier place. But yeah, it's really about just accepting that that's what life's about, and accepting that things do shift.
Things do shift.
Yeah.
And you probably will look back on this time period and with gratitude
Right.
for the
Right.
growth that happened.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's going to be a time period where you're going to feel so good and connected and grounded, just like just like everything in life. There's always periods where you feel, sad and down, and disconnected, and periods where that changes. And then, again, it's about really like that, learning to surrender to that, learning to surrender to the cycles of life.
Yeah, and just accepting that that's the way it is. I feel like we can get into a lot of we can create struggling for ourselves when we feel like we always have to be up and happy and productive.
Yeah. 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 We create these expectations,
Yeah,
and that's what causes the suffering at the end of the
exactly.
day.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We'll
Yeah.
just
Oh
give
my
ourselves
goodness.
some grace.
Yes, Vanessa, this was so amazing. I'm so happy. We broke everything down. I love it.
That was such a great conversation. I'm really grateful that you had me on your podcast. This is
Yeah,
just, it's a really important conversation to have.
it is. It is. Yeah. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom, and spreading your light with not only the audience, but with me as well, as I maneuver my way through this experience too, since I'm like in the middle of it. But I really appreciate that you came on, and that you're just so supportive, and thanks for being part of my soul tribe.
Anytime. I am honored.
Yes.
And we're all in the middle. We're all
Yeah.
in
We're
yeah,
all
we're
in
all
a
in the messy
limbo.
middle.
Yeah, we're all in a limbo of like, where do we stand? Collectively, we're all in this together. So
Exactly.
we all have each other's backs through this. And it's important to remember that. So yeah, thank you, Vanessa. Before we sign off though, just tell the audience where they can find you and if you have any cool videos coming out or anything like that.
For sure. So I'm on YouTube. You can just search Vanessa Ooms. My last name is Ooms. You can also check out my website, vanessaooms.com. I'm also on Instagram at vanooms.
I love that.
Pretty much if you search Vanessa Ooms, I'll come up on the internet. And I do at least one video a week on YouTube. Sometimes there's more. Yeah, and I'm looking at starting a little podcast as well.
Yes,
But
I love it.
yeah, and I'm working on blog posts as well. I'm just working
Creating.
on resources for you guys. So
Yeah, and creating,
appreciate
just,
it.
moving through that creative energy. I love it, Vanessa. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being so awesome, and we will talk soon.
Thanks so much, Yasmin.
Bye, Vanessa.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please share this with someone you love and don't forget to subscribe. If you're interested in coaching with me, find me on Instagram at Yasmin Elsmore. Make sure to also follow Humanity Feels on Instagram for daily inspiration and conscious conversations. Love always, Humanity Feels.